Hi, everybody. I recently spoke in Costa Rica at a women's conference in Gracia, and it was incredible. I mean, it was just an amazing night. God did so much. And so I just thought that I would come on here and just share some of the bullet points of the things that I shared, since most of you watching this weren't there. All right, so first of all, I started out by talking about resistance. I'm sure a lot of us are feeling in this day and age where we're facing a lot of resistance. But think about how resistance works on a bike. If there is no resistance between the tire and the road, then the bicycle doesn't move forward. So in that case, resistance is what we need to move forward. But when resistance is what we're feeling emotionally, spiritually, even physically, when we feel like we're constantly having to just walk through sludge just to get through the day to day, it's exhausting. I mean, even resistance on a bike is exhausting. Think about, going up a really long hill. Man, oh man, speaking of hills, when I was in Costa Rica, they have hills. I mean, here in New England, I thought that we had some pretty steep hills. Their hills are like that. It's crazy town. So they knew exactly what I was talking about when I said the resistance on your bike when you're going up a hill makes you exhausted and sweaty. The only difference, though, is when we're riding a bike, if it gets really, really bad, unless, you're in some sort of a race and everybody's counting on you finishing in a certain time frame, when we're on a bike, we can just get off, right? If it's that bad, we just get off the bike and either walk the bike up the hill the rest of the way, or we just stop and rest. But when resistance is coming against us in our lives, we do not have that luxury. We can't just tell the world, stop, I want to get off, I need to catch my breath, because things continually come at us that make us exhausted. And so in that case, we tend to view resistance negatively. We feel like resistance is going to crush us and it's going to defeat us. And that's where we have to look at God's perspective on resistance if we're going to use resistance the right way. And to get God's perspective on resistance, I had the ladies go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. If you think about it, Adam and Eve were created in a garden where Satan already existed on the planet Earth. When God created Adam and Eve, he could have created humankind on some planet that Satan had not been cast down to, right? And in which case, there would not be any spiritual resistance for Adam and Eve to have to come up against. But God chose not to do that. In fact, God gives Adam and Eve the command in Genesis, that they are to subdue the earth, they are to take dominion. Those are resistance words, okay? If there's no resistance, there's nothing or no one to subdue. If there's nobody coming against you, then we're going to take dominion over. So those right out of the gate, those commands are resistance commands, telling Adam and Eve, I'm with you, I'm for you, and I'm going to help you subdue the earth and to take dominion. And we're going to push this Garden of Eden bliss out. But you're going to have to grow into that. As you learn to handle resistance, you will grow to subdue the earth, to take dominion little by little. Now, that's not what happened, right? We know how the story goes. The first time that we know of that they are up against resistance from the enemy, they fall. Instead of leveraging that resistance and calling on the Lord for his wisdom and his assistance, they tried to handle it in their own strength, and it didn't work. And the same is true with us. So we have to be really, really aware of the fact that the enemy has a plan for resistance, and for us not to live in a lie. The lie is that somehow we're supposed to handle all of this on our own. And we can see throughout human history how well that's worked out for humankind. The truth is that resistance is not the enemy. Our attitude and our perspective on resistance is what makes us weary. It's what makes us want to quit. It's what makes us feel hopeless. And we talked about how there is a level of weariness in the world today that we've never seen, right? There are people who just are backing off, at least in the church world. I'm seeing this specifically. People are backing off from their calling like never before. That's what the enemy wants. But God has a whole different perspective on resistance. And that is that resistance is there to make us stronger. Resistance is there to make us more humble. And resistance exists to give us the opportunity to partner with God. We are revival. We are the answer that this world needs. We carry the kingdom of God in all its fullness on the inside of us. So why are we crying like orphans? And why are we acting like victims? God has never created a single victim. Not one. He only creates victors. And so if we feel like victims and act like victims, we don't know who we are. And that's the crux of the issue.